Hey friends, it is Beth with Crochet RX, and today is a little different. I am popping on here today to go over and through some of my favorite things for gift giving. So whether you are a crochet person yourself that is looking for some ideas to put on your wish list, or you are someone who is looking to purchase things for either an established crochet artist or somebody who's aspiring to be a crochet artist. So some of these things I've mentioned previously in some of my crochet must-haves, but I just thought it would be good to refresh this and give a little bit more of a gift-giving twist. So first off, I would be amiss if I did not talk about how I got into crochet. Initially, I had purchased a kit off of Amazon, no name kit. It came with instructions that were in like Japanese. I couldn't read any of it. The tutorials that they linked like through a QR code online were also in a foreign language, and it did not go well. It was quite awful. So I tend to be fairly frugal, tend to be somewhat cheap, skimpy on things, and I thought I could do this with a $10 kit. No. So I then forked over the money for a Woobles kit. So the Woobles are cute little kits. There's a number of different ones that range from beginners to a beginner plus. Let me see if I can't find a plus here. That's the same one. Is this one a plus? That's intermediate. So it literally has a plus sign behind the beginner on the bottom of it. And those are the step up from the beginners. All of my kits say beginners. So there is the beginners, there is the beginner plus, there are ones that come with a hook, and there are ones that do not have a hook. It is an option to not get a hook. So this one does not have a hook, whereas the owl here does. So depending on if they are starting from the very beginning and have very little supplies, I would look at a kit that is all inclusive. It's got your yarn, it comes with codes to access the tutorials and step-by-step instructions. There's the pre-started piece, so you don't have to try and tackle the magic ring right out of the get-go. It comes with needles, eyes, stuffing, the whole 9 yards. So if somebody is looking, this would be a great option. As far as the actual kits to start with, I would look at something like Pierre the penguin. He has the least amount of extra things, so you can build up, or they can build up a little bit of self-efficacy by tackling that before we start adding things on like wings and eyebrows. So this is one of my favorite patterns though. I do really love this owl. And then as you progress, you can get into intermediate kits. So going from the beginner to the beginner plus, and then the intermediate kits. So this is an intermediate kit. Yes, I have quite a stash of them. And no, I have not done all of them in the Woobles yarn. So some of them I opened and then got the pattern instructions, and I did it with various yarns. Some I still need to do and all that. I have the full Harry Potter series. I have lots of Woobles kits. So I don't know that I've bought anything in about a year now though for the different kits. I'm getting to a point where I can look at things and create my own patterns for some of them. But a number of their collaborations just haven't been of interest to me. So that's a large reason why I have not purchased any more. So yeah, I don't see a plus here to show you that specific plus. But definitely lots of options from Christmas through, you know, the different kits. Pac-Man, and all of the various collaborations may not all be still available, but they've had Harry Potter, they've had Pac-Man, and a number of pop artist ones. And all of these things will be linked down in the description. They are all affiliate links. If you think I'm getting paid loads of money from Amazon, I've made $1.36 in the last year, and they haven't even paid that for me because they only pay out in $10 increments, or, you know, once you get over $10. So in the last year of doing YouTube and having the affiliate links there, I still have not been paid. So no fear that I am making monstrous amounts of money off of anything like this. I promise you, I haven't even been able to get a candy or a soda. So those are the Woobles kits. The next thing would be like crochet hooks. So what hooks you have are certainly up to you. Everybody is individual, but having a good crochet hook makes a big difference in the crochet journey. With the metal, the smoothness of the metal, the yarn doesn't kind of hang or catch on it, and it can make a big difference. So I really like the Clover brand, if it'll kind of focus in on that. So this is a 5mm. The Woobles kits are all 4mm, and they're decent hooks. The 5mm is just a smidge bigger. My crochet stitches are tight enough that I find the 5mm to be, you know, what I prefer. And they come in a lovely rainbow assortment of colors for the different sizes. So you can get multi-packs really cheap of crochet hooks, and I've talked about this before, but the crochet hooks that you get the whole kit for like $10-15, while they are okay for starting, they aren't the best for continuing. They aren't as well secured in here, and the shaft seems to come out of the rubber grips much faster. I have yet to disconnect the metal from the rubber silicone handle on a Clover. So I have the 4s and the 4, 5, and 6s in with backups in the event anything should happen. But because my whole family, well, not my husband, but because myself and both girls crochet, we have multiple extras there as well. And then once you get into the larger sizes of the Clovers, they do turn into plastic, which I find unfortunate. The plastic is okay, but I would still prefer a metal, even if it's just a smidge heavier. So that's where I have then moved to some of the acrylic hooks for the larger sizes. I don't use them for the smaller sizes. Quite honestly, I am somewhat afraid that with the tension I pull, that I'm going to break it with the thinner yarns that I pull much tighter. Because the whole thing is much smaller, I just worry about the shaft. So I do have, let me pull this guy out. So this is a 4mm in the O-Fire, and then this is a 6.5 with the furls. So just is it gonna focus there? But just how small this is right here up at the very tip, I am just so concerned that I'm going to snap that as I hold things tight. I have not, but it's a fear that I do have. So I do tend to use, I've got 5.5, well, I do have a number of smaller ones, including even Harry Potter Ravenclaw themed O-Fires. But I tend to use the bigger ones. The O-Fires can be purchased directly from their website. I'm not affiliate or anything like that for them. So those you would have to go directly to them for. They might have something on Amazon, but I have purchased directly from them. So this is the other, so the acrylics I find work well for the larger and blanket yarns. And then they also give a different feel for the grip. So as I hold it, it also gives my hand a different position to be in, switching back and forth between the hooks. So I find that that gives my hand some relief when I've been doing things for a while, just switching up from my clover hook with the metal to the acrylic hooks. I hold in a different way and it keeps my hand from getting so tired. As we then look at different accessories to go with the crochet, these are great little stocking stuffers or little gifts to go with something else as well. So this is a 150, something like that, piece stitch marker set. So it comes in a whole bunch of colors, and these little plastic stitch markers are just easy and cheap. I find that color coding for certain things on some patterns that I have the stitch marker at the beginning of my round, but then I also need to mark where eyes might go. So especially like on my Brontosaurus pattern, there is a section of increases that end up being kind of the snout mouth area. And the eyes go on the sides of that row of increases. So as opposed to having to go back and count those stitches, because you've got increases and you've got decreases, and it can be a little confusing on counting, I will then use one stitch marker color for the beginning of round, and then I will use a different stitch marker color for those places where the eyes need to go. So I really recommend having a variety of stitch markers for your projects. And then next on my list of must-haves are scissors. Good scissors. Travel scissors are really convenient. These guys fold up, and you know, these ones are TSA compliant, but you don't have to get TSA ones. I just find that the little scissors travel really nicely in my little bag of things. So good quality scissors are necessary with cutting the felts that I use, the different yarns. You need a solid pair of scissors. So these little guys are good for the task there. And then depending on if you get one of those Woobles kits, you will have the blunt needles. So these I have just acquired from my multiple Woobles kits. And so these are just really great quality needles. But if you don't go the Woobles route, or you're like me and you lose them everywhere, you may need to buy some extras. So there are ones that are straight and there are ones that are curved. So the curved ones can be good to help stitch on a head or something like that, where you've got a little bit tighter space and it helps to get it through and out better. So these have fairly large eyes there to put the thread through, and those are really great. Then there's also the plastic ones, which have an even larger eye opening for putting that thread through. So the plastic ones work great. The larger eye for like the blanket yarns. Some of the chenilles that are more prone to shedding, this puts a little less pressure on that specific area where the yarn is at. And so that can be a good option as well. So you definitely kind of figure out what you prefer as far as the straight and bent needles, but it can be nice to have a variety. If you get large enough ones, they can also work to keep your stitches in place as you are, or keep your body parts in place as you are sewing them together. I've used those bent needles for that multiple times to affix a head to a body, as opposed to always using the knitting needles to do that. So that's definitely a good option there as well. And then there's this. This created quite a stir when I was at our homeschool co-op. The one time one of the kids came over thinking you just play with my poppet. This is how I count. So I count my rounds on larger plushies where I have, you know, 5 rounds of 30 to do as we do, you know, the belly or whatever. This is how I count. So I just pop it in as I complete the row. It gives me an easy visual. I also use these when I am at events because I am just so frequently interrupted with sales, people talking, you know, and that is the purpose of being at events. But it makes it so much faster for me to return to what I was doing because I can see exactly where I was and I can just pick up, as opposed to having to count my rounds and then reference the pattern and see where I am. I can just look and see exactly what round I'm on. So this guy, super fun. It's really a math accessory, as it helps you count. And that there's ones that have like math, just number charts on one side with multiplication charts on the other. This is just a very basic one. And so I've used this, I don't know, year and a half. I don't think quite 2 years yet. And I haven't rubbed off the numbers. So that was a good little buy for me. And then I don't have right here in front of me, but the yarn winder. This is not sponsored. This is not promoted in any way, but the electric Kato yarn winder has been so useful. My husband got me a hand crank one last Christmas before, and the gears just stripped out. We put so much yarn through the yarn winder. The cakes are so much easier for me to use. So by cakes, I'm talking about this as opposed to a skein of yarn like that. So these have a center pull. They just work out so much easier. I don't have to keep rolling the yarn out and pulling it back as I'm crocheting. So those just go so much easier. The Kato yarn winder also, it has a much bigger base. I don't know what you call that, but it will hold a lot more of like a Bernat blanket. Some of the Bernat blankets I can get an entire skein onto or in a cake, whereas with the manual one there was no way. It was nowhere close. So that has really been good for our shoulders, elbows, all of that, by not hand cranking it and having that electric option. It's not something that you can completely walk away from. There's snags, there's, you know, yarn that kind of sticks together and doesn't release as easily, but it is so beneficial to be able to just let it do its thing. And you just kind of, it has its own tension control, and you can figure out how much tension you need for the different types of yarn. So that has been a really good investment for us because I tend to buy yarn in bulk, especially when I was panic shopping with Joann's at the beginning of the year. I bought so much yarn, and it's so much easier to store when I can stack it like that. So that is my yarn winder there. Then I'll put away my scissors so I don't lose those. My hook case. So a while back, I had put out a question on, I don't remember which social media channel, but asking how to store the larger acrylic hooks, because these guys are so much bigger than these guys. And so many of the standard hook cases are a 1/2 inch to 1 inch too short. So I put out a, how do you store these? I had them in pencil pouches, which was okay, but again, not very secure or safe for some of these acrylic hooks, especially these ones with the super narrow neck. So somebody came back and said makeup cases. Brilliant. So this is a makeup brush case. It works phenomenally for holding the crochet hooks. So this is what I keep all my, not all my hooks, but these are the ones that I use the most. So we've got our clover hooks here at the beginning, and then we move to the acrylic hooks. So it goes from smallest to largest, from smallest to largest. And then in the back here, I've got the extra knitting needles so that I can secure for sewing. And then this one has a second compartment in the back that, I'll try not to dump it here. You can reposition these little guys. They're just Velcro. And so I've got extra black thread for embroidering. I've got more of the straight and bent needles. I have more hook or stitch markers, and then just some various things. I had to use a paper clip when I've been adding buttons to some things to try and get the yarn through. My rubber bands to hold yarn if needed. I've got, oh, my little yarn, or my bent needle case actually broke finally. So I'll have to find that little piece of plastic in there. I then also use a end of a screwdriver to help with getting backs on the safety eyes. Some of those are really hard to get on, and the end of the screwdriver, the back, or the eye, the stud for the eye can go right in there, and I can push the back on. And then measuring tape, which I don't use the measuring tape a whole lot, but it can help as I put up my listings and stuff like that. Oh, my needles are running wild in my case. I didn't realize that broke at some point, so I will need to get them all in a Ziploc here and get them secured back up, because nobody wants needles flying around everywhere. All right, very good. So another thing that I've received as a gift and has been super valuable is my neck light. So this guy just sits on. I then have power button. It has different intensities and different color tones. So this it's positionable all over, up, down, all around. I've even hung it on things, slipped it through something and just hung it where it's not been on my neck. But this is super great. So rechargeable, and this comes in so handy. I do sit outside my children's dance studio for hours on end, 3 days a week. And so, especially this time of year where it is dark at 5:30, I have a light that I can do. And then other things, certainly there's lots of places to get patterns, but books are another option. So some of the ones that I use here, Crochet Donut Buddies. They are just so fun and so cute. I really do enjoy all the fun little creatures here. And then I've got Jenna's No Sew Mini Amigurumi. And so I have made a lot of these. I have a little mini playlist of some of the animals that I have made. I need to get back to making some more of these. It's been a minute. So those. Then I've got the Mama Made Minis Knotted Loveys. And this is a good reference for those of you who like making the loveys. The loveys don't sell as well for me as other things do. So I haven't made any in quite a while because I still have some inventory for that. Zugurumi. There are multiple of the Zugurumi books, so definitely check them out to see what animals you are interested in and what you might want to make there. These do show worsted weight yarn, but I do most of my stuff in a plush. And I love aquatics. I love sea turtles, I love fish, I love it all. So this is a little whimsical aquatic amigurumi. It has some mermaids as well. Just a lot of fun things. Just a little bit more of a whimsical take on some than others. So certainly very cute. Lots of fun little critters here. Then Crochet Cute Critters. This is one of the first books that I had received, and I have made these little guys for a number of gifts. So we've got elephants and dogs and jellies and all sorts of things. So these are super cute and super beginner friendly, because that was definitely where I was when I got this book. Then this is Crochet Magical Creatures. So again, another whimsical take here on a number of the options here. Jackalopes, Pegasus unicorns, phoenixes, sprites, mermaids, kraken, Loch Ness monster. So very whimsical on the magical creatures, which goes very well with our Harry Potter stuff. And so with Harry Potter stuff, this is one of my Harry Potter books. This one is quite advanced, and while it is beautiful to look at, and I'm pretty sure this was on my wish list, but I had no idea how advanced it was when I put it on my wish list. So I've probably had this book about 3 years, and I should go back in and look at tackling something in here. But a lot of the projects are much larger than what I typically do. The projects I do typically take under 3 hours and I'm done. So this has a number of clothing and very large projects. Socks, garments. Obviously the socks aren't as large as the blanket. So just a word of caution. This is absolutely beautiful to look at. It is beautiful sitting in my craft room, but it is a bit more advanced than this next book that I'm going to show you. So this book then came out about a year ago, and 24 copyright. So this one I found out about because one of the crochet artists that I follow was asked to contribute to this book. So this one is much simpler. The projects are not as big and overwhelming. And so if you're looking for a Harry Potter crochet book, if you are at all in the early stages of your crochet journey, I would recommend this one. If you are somebody who already does apparel and large blankets, this would be good for you. It's just know that between the two of them, this one is much more beginner friendly and simpler to read through. The patterns are laid out very nicely, and it's a much simpler on the eyes to go through. So super cute. My daughter has made a pygmy puff. So definitely something to keep in mind. I do want to make the pixie. I do. I said I was going to do it last winter, and I just never got it done. So maybe this winter. So those are really the highlights for, you know, what I feel would be great gift ideas for people in your life that love to crochet or aspire to crochet, or some ideas to add to your own list, because it is so fun to open these things up and find the possibilities. So again, all the links will be in the description. If you have questions, or if there's something that you are adding to your own list, I would love to hear, and we will catch up later.